It's like, okay, if like we were to dismantle like a plane and you point to each individual part, you're like, can it fly?
Why
Can
are
it fly? Can it
why
fly? And then
why are
like
you
when we put them all together,
that
like the thousand
that
parts of a plane together,
wait
and you're like, well, can that
wait
fly? And I'm like, yes.
wait. Sorry.
You there?
Here, what's up?
Okay, so I asked before if me buying something imparts demand, right? And you said no.
Yep.
Okay, so in that case, if I so let's say I buy something and let's say someone else buys something
Mm.
and let's say
So
else
no, we're
buys
talking about
something.
your individual action. When you're talking about group actions, that's different. But your individual action.
Wait,
All right.
but wait. Person one buys something, and you're saying that they don't impart any demand. Is that
Why? So
correct?
why are you arguing economics if you already admitted you don't know anything about economics? Like, I'm sure there's a better avenue for you to go on this veganism route.
Well, wait. I'm just trying to clear something up. If you can tell me why why what the issue is with what I'm saying, then that'd be great. But so if I impart some demand, if person one imparts some demand or they buy something, you're saying they don't impart any demand, right? So so we understand that so far. Like that's clear, right?
Okay, so like
That's,
this
I'm just
is
restating what you said. I'm just restating what you said. So
I if you
a
want to
person
devolve it
buys,
down to a binary, I think is fundamentally incorrect. But like once again, you said you don't really understand
that
economics, so like I
I
guess we can do
understand
that.
enough.
But
Understand enough to talk about things like this. So we're not even talking. We're talking about. I'm asking about the property of something. Okay, I'm telling you, if you impart, it could be if I could say if you jiggle job McGee, do you three or do you impart this, right? And if you can tell me that, I can understand what you're saying, right? I don't need to know about economics. If so, I'm just asking you if somebody buys something, do they do does X happen where X is they've imparted some demand? You told me no, right? You said
yep,
no.
pretty
Yeah.
much.
So if person you said no clearly. So for the record, it's no. So if person one buys something, I'm just restating what you said now. So if person one buys something, they impart no demand.
Can I just explain my position? Like, can I just explain this instead of us
I've
going
just
step by step? Because the step by step is
I've
where you
just
lose the forest through the trees, and that's the
what
problem we're having here.
so the step by step is literally a complete description of what you're saying. I'm just speaking
Listen, we
about
could
what
do
you're
two
saying.
things. Either
And
I'll
for some
explain it
reason,
collectively, which is what makes it make sense, or
okay.
you can keep going step by step, which is what makes
So
you look correct when you're wrong. But or we can move
okay,
on
so
to something more productive. I don't care which one.
So look, I don't look. I'm not interested in other things right now besides what you said, because that's it's problematic. It seems to be problematic for me. So I asked you. So this is extremely simple, and we could we could probably finish this fairly quickly if you would interrupt. So I asked you again. I don't want to have to restate this so many times, but please. I asked you if a person buys something, do they impart demand? And you said no. That's
It started
right.
with basically no, and then I was like, if you
And then
want to
you
make it
said,
a binary, it
and
leans
I
more
asked you.
towards no than yes.
Okay,
In a
so now
collective sense, yes.
so now you're kind of weaseling. Okay,
Oh my
I've
god.
asked you I've asked you
I've
like
said
four
this like three times. There's people here who were here when this initially started, and I 100% added in that caveat of functionally no, and then like you're like, well, it's either yes or no. And I was like, well, if you're gonna make me apply a binary to it,
no,
which is inappropriate in this context, I will say then no. I would defend no more than yes.
dude. I asked you, and you said things like basically no, and that is why I said wait, is it no, yes or no? And it's actually a really simple question. If somebody imparts some demand, if somebody imparts some demand when they buy something, then you just say yes, they impart some demand. You don't have to say basically no. It's some assuming it's some real valued metric you can use. It could be zero, and if it's not zero, then the answer is yes. It does impart some demand. But you were saying it's a hard no, and I asked you to clarify because you did say things like, "Oh, basically no," and I said,
So
"Wait."
I've offered to clarify, and you're trying to step by step this.
So
I said if you give me
you
like a minute to explain this, I can
said,
probably like clarify this position. But like the step by
okay,
step thing
so
is where
wait,
you
so
lose it.
are you backing off on what you said before when you said that when somebody buys something, they impart no demand? Are you backing off of that, or are you continuing to hold that?
What we're doing right now is like basically it would be like if we
So
said like,
you
is this a
answer
straight line? Is this a straight line? Is this a straight line? And then when we
simple
look at the whole thing,
question.
it's a triangle. You're like, no, it's not a triangle. It's a series of straight lines.
So are you like you're failing to answer again like super simple questions? So like I'll ask again. Are you going to back off of what you originally said when what you originally said was if somebody buys something, they do not impart demand? Are you going
Individually,
to
they do
back
not.
off
They
of
do
that?
in macroeconomic structures.
Okay.
Individually, they do not impart demand through their individual action. No.
Okay, sir. So again, you are now saying it's true that if somebody buys something, they do not impart demand, meaning they impart zero demand. Do you agree with that?
In
That's what you
terms of
just said.
how
Do you
macroeconomic
agree with
structure, no, I'm not.
do you
No, I'm
agree
not
with what
playing
you
your
just said?
fucking game. I'm gonna answer the question contextually so that it makes sense. Like you're just
Dude,
being
what
ridiculous
is
right
wrong
now
with you?
because
You
you're
said
being
you're saying
ridiculous.
something. You're saying something, and I'm restating what you're saying and asking you if you agree, and you're saying
So
I'm being
so
ridiculous.
let's be clear. We're
Are you
speaking in
okay,
front of
dude?
an audience right now, and like maybe if we speak it, so when we speak in this like very
Said
abstract
something.
term, what you're saying is accurate. But if I contextualize it, other people understand why it makes sense more. When you dumb it down and leave out the details, yes, it sounds ridiculous, but the details are what make the difference to whether you're right or I am right here. So when I answer your question, I'm going to include the caveat of explaining why I think I'm right, because every time you simplify it, it's what makes me look stupid. And I know you're trying to make me look stupid, but I'm actually not stupid because once again,
No, you're acting stupid. I don't know. Like I
so
think maybe you are stupid,
what's your master's
but
degree
maybe not.
in?
But this is
Is it in economics?
this is my impression of you right now. So I asked you a question. You answered the question, and then I said, "Is this the answer to your question?" When I restated what you said, and then you have some problem with that. So I'll ask again. Are you going to step off from the claim you made before, which was that when somebody buys something, they impart no demand? That's
No,
what you
not
said
walking
before.
away from that.
Okay, so then you believe that to be true. Is that right? So you said it before.
And individually,
So
you depart no demand on the economic system
yes,
that we live in.
yes. So an individual, when they buy something, they impart zero demand. That is a fact to you.
Yep,
Is
pretty much.
that is something you hold to be true. So for the past 25 minutes, this is what we've been talking about.
Once again,
Now we
so
can
I've
now we
said
can
it
move on.
multiple times. When you simplify it in
So
that manner, it
now
sounds
we can
ridiculous,
move
which
on.
is why I've contextualized the answer several times now. We're just running in circles because you think it makes me sound stupid. Once again, can we move on to a different vegan argument? Because like this is clearly like you not understanding what I'm
There's not
saying,
a vegan.
and we're not making
There's not.
progress
No,
here.
we're not making progress because you are not like you are having an issue with me bringing up what you're saying and confirming it. So now that we've confirmed it, now we can move on finally. So at this point,
I
you're
think I've
saying
confirmed it half a dozen times already, but okay.
you're saying and you've had a problem with it half a dozen times. So you're saying that now we can say that it's true that you think it's true that if someone buys something they impart zero demand, right? Okay. Given that, let's say we have person one and they buy something. Do they impart zero demand? That we could that's true, right? Just by using we could use the basic implication here, right? So now if we have person two and they buy something, they impart zero demand. Now, if you have a multitude, let's say you have 100 people, 1,000 people, and
No,
arbitrarily
that's
large number.
no. When you get to thousands of people, that's when you're correct. But individually, it's not correct. That is
So
what.
basically, so you have a
Your
failure
individual
to
choice
understand.
makes no
You have a
impact here.
failure to understand basic math. That's what you're saying.
Oh, 1 + 1 = 2. Shit, I didn't know that until this conversation right now. Fuck.
I think okay, if you have a hard time understanding, I could explain it to you, but it's actually really simple. So if you're saying that for any individual, if they buy something, they impart zero demand, and I'm saying okay. Now let's say we have 1,000 individuals. Before you try
Okay,
to
I'm
yell and
actually not
interrupt,
gonna. No,
let's
I'm
say
not gonna have
before you
this
try.
conversation anymore. You move past the economic argument for veganism because like this is profoundly stupid, and I'm not willing to continue engaging in like
So
this
you don't.
ridiculous
So
economic
wait.
argument.
So I'm just curious. Did you take math? Did you take algebra 1 at least in like high school? I assume you graduated.
No, I'm actually a high school
Some
dropout.
sort of Okay, well,
Was that the
fine.
problem?
Well,
Is that I'm a high school dropout? Is that why I can't understand your complex thoughts
well,
and
I think it's
ideas?
I think I think it's a problem that you don't understand basic math. Yes.
Oh
So I
man.
don't know how that how that happened for
Oh
this
no.
conversation, right?
It's
So
be
so
well.
I can help
So because
explain.
I
I
dropped
can
out of
help
high school,
explain.
does that mean that I can't have a master's degree? Because could both be true?
Uh, well, look, dude, I don't know what you're saying right now, but if you have a problem understanding basic math, that's going to be a problem for this conversation.
So you
So
assume because I dropped out of high school that I haven't taken any sort of advanced math?
I'm assuming you have a pretty poor understanding of math based on what you said. So
Well,
I can
sure, but it's
explain
because you're
why.
missing the context that makes that. So I dropped out of high school and went and
There's,
got a
I
bachelor's,
don't
and now I'm
care.
getting now
I don't care.
I'm about to finish a master's degree. So while
Well, I
A
don't
is true, the
about that. I care about this conversation.
the point is, see, you're jumping to conclusions based off this one premise that wasn't justified. I did it to bait you, and it's funny because it worked.
Okay,
Because like you're
are
jumping
you,
to conclusions
wait,
based off
no, no,
like you
no.
thinking I dropped out
Did
of high
you?
school and don't understand math. But I'm saying you don't understand macro. You started this conversation saying you don't understand economics very well, and you give me this basic bitch economic argument indicating you don't understand like macroeconomic structures and how they parlay into demand things.
Sir,
And when I say your individual choice doesn't matter in terms of like
sir,
determining demand in a macroeconomic structure,
sir,
that is correct. You saying, well, when
sir.
1,000 individuals do it, okay, yeah, when 1,000 individuals do it, that's a collective change, not an individual change.
Okay, look, I just have to filter out a lot of the things you say because they're just irrelevant. So you agree that an individual buying something imparts zero demand, right? Okay, we are that far. Now, if an individual buying something imparts, if individual A buys something, they impart zero demand. If individual B buys something, they impart zero demand.
This is like
If,
just
invi-
liberal nonsense right now. I'm
if
sorry.
individual C buys something, they impart zero demand. Do you understand that so far?
See, okay, once again, I'm going to say this one more time, and then I'm
Do
no
you
longer
understand?
engaging in
Do
this
you
principle with you.
understand?
We can move past your
Do
economic
you
argument
do
because
you
it's
understand
stupid.
that?
No,
Okay,
that's not how
but
this works.
wait. So if you said before, if somebody buys something, an individual buys something, they impart zero demand. And then I ask you, if individual A buys something, do they impart zero demand? So you're saying that this is not how it works, but that's what you said before. So are you going to back off of that now?
Nope.
Or okay, so then I'll
Once
ask you
again, you
again.
don't understand
If
economics. Please move
individual
past this argument because now that you're just shit talking me with general things,
this actually has nothing. This doesn't even have to do with economics, other than the word
you
demand is related to it. I'm
you don't understand what you're
obviously
talking. I'm literally once
obviously
again. Okay, this is the last time I'm going to
obviously
make this
things like
claim.
demand.
Move past this, or like this conversation is going nowhere because you don't know
Okay,
what
look,
you're talking
dude,
about,
if
and you're using like some really stupid like basic math
look,
argument and using like pop economic terms
all right,
and like
let's
an
try this
econ
one more time.
101 argument, and I'm bored of it.
Let's try this. Let's try this.
No,
Let's
we're
try
not
this
trying
one
this
more
one more
time.
time. No, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just being dense right now. So if you want to move to a different name of the trade
Okay.
argument, you can do it, and we can play that game because that's what you said you wanted to do. So I'm fine with it.
Well,
But like your
sir,
supply demand thing is absurd.
sir.
So no.
Okay, look, dude. Let's try this again. If forget the word demand for now. Let's say person. There's well, actually, okay. Person A, or if an individual buys something, do they impart zero demand? Is that true or false?
I'm not answering this question again. I've answered it like 6
So
times.
are you okay, so you're not backing off of it, right? Okay.
I
So
swear to God, if you go into then just person
so
1 doesn't buy
okay.
and person 2 and person 1,000 doesn't buy, like once again,
So
like
wait. So when you say but when you say an individual buys something and they impart zero demand, do you mean individual? You mean like a person, like me or you, right? So if I say I go buy something, I'm going to impart zero demand. Is that right? Is that right? Okay, so now let's pretend you go buy something. When you go buy something, are you also going to impart zero demand? Okay, and we are two people. Okay, so now imagine a third person goes and buys, and let's say we're all buying the same thing. Okay, so a third person goes and buys something.
I've said I'm not doing this.
imparting
You can
zero
move
demand?
on past the economic argument because I think we both made our point here. You fundamentally don't understand economics. I'm probably not
Wait.
explaining it as best I
Okay,
could, so I'm too lazy.
so
To,
you're
I don't
not
have
so
my
you're not
degree is
gonna
not in economics, so
okay, so if a bunch of people go buy the same thing, they all individually impart zero demand, right? According to what you said. So if an arbitrarily large amount of people go buy something, zero
That
plus
would
zero
have
plus zero,
that would
you
matter.
can sum all that up and it'll be zero. And so that's why what you're saying is problematic. And it's taken you like 30 minutes now to get to this point.
Nope.
Could I cut in slightly? Because I want to give GKR the benefit of the doubt, and I think what he means is that the amount of demand that she generated from singular individual purchasing something, when looked at in terms of animal agriculture, is so like
No, that's not what he said. It's
insignificant
not what he
that
said.
it's
I actually
basically
cleared this
zero.
up. I cleared this up. I made
You
sure to
did?
clarify because he said some, you know, he said kind of some vague things. So I clarified with him, and he did agree about like a bunch of times that if you go buy something, you impart zero demand. He agreed with that. I asked him a bunch of times because it kind of sounds pretty silly, and
Yeah,
he
it
did
sounds
confirm it.
like
And so now what
silly.
happens is if multiple individuals go buy the same thing, they all impart zero demand collectively when you sum it all up. And that's what I mean. This is just an issue I had with what he said that before I could even talk about really veganism. It's just this issue with demand. So, I mean, at this point, I think that it's kind of a really weird belief to have because then essentially if I go pay for anything and any number arbitrarily large number of people go pay for anything, they're not going to impart demand.
You good? Can we move on to your next argument? Because, like I said, this economic thing, you don't understand it. I'm probably not explaining it as good as I could.
Well,
Like, if you have something else, cool.
I understand that zero.
Actually, you know what?
zero
I'm
of
gonna
a bunch
I'm gonna
of
change it.
times
Individually, it doesn't matter because you end up with like smart
Okay,
fart
so you're
sniffing
back- so you're
like
back-
vegans who
wait,
think they
wait, so
don't
you're
need to
back
go out
off.
and vote and do like macro structural change because they think their individual thing matters. So it's actually bad to be vegan.
Do you think if you sum zero up as many times as you can, it'll be not zero?
Nope.
Okay, so you think it would still be zero. So when a bunch of people go buy something because they all impart zero demand collectively and individually, then ultimately collectively they impart zero demand. So you're saying that 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is actually 0. You just said that just now. But you're saying somehow
You can't
in
look
this
at
case-
it as a series of
case with
individual
demand-
actions. That's the problem. Like you can't like
Wait, why
this
can't-
isn't
wait,
how
wait.
things work. In
And why did you agree to the statement that an individual imparts zero demand?
because
Surely
the
we could at least
individual
talk
isn't,
about that.
collective action can.
Wait. So wait. Me as an individual, if I go buy something, I impart zero demand.
Yep.
Now, if another individual buys something, the same thing, they also impart zero demand, but somehow there's some sort of make-up math that's going on where 0 plus 0 is actually more than 1, or sorry, more than 0. So that's why I asked you if you took math in high school, and you said you didn't.
So I didn't say that. Remember I said I fucked with you? While I am a high school dropout, I have taken college level mathematics, including calculus. So I have taken high level mathematics or higher level mathematics than high school dropout math. Remember? I let you make that erroneous conclusion about me having no education past high school when I actually am about to finish a master's.
So I think, I think you're probably trying to convey something that you're not conveying properly, because what you're conveying is like implying 0 plus 0 is not 0.
It's not
So
how-
I think maybe you're saying there's some sort of other like complex. I'm actually not sure.
Yes, I said you're unable to understand what I'm saying because you keep trying.
I'm not sure what you're trying to convey, but I do know what you are conveying is nonsense, because you're using some sort of basically violating basic math, right? I can ask somebody, a 7-year-old, if 0 plus 0 is.
Dude, is that Ann's 40 guy around here? Because I heard him make the argument better than I could. Is he floating around? let's
Do you have
say
an argument that 0 plus 0 is not 0?
more or less, yeah. In this, like, well, if you like, you're
No, he doesn't. Don't
Mentally is
straw
math.
man ants. That's not his position at all.
that 0 plus 0 equals 1,000. Yeah, no.
No,
But once
that's
again,
not-
he's
that's
just
not. He's not doing what you're doing, right? You're going further than him. He's not saying that an individual purpose does not generate demand, but collectively purchases do, right? That's
Yes.
wait.
that's
Stop.
what I'm in agreement with
Stop.
that though.
Wait a second. But you're not being clear about that, which is why someone's accusing you of not understanding basic math, right? Like if you want to grant that, that cumulatively there's something, but it's made up of individuals generating demand, then that's fine. What's triggering someone?
Isaac, how long have you been here, Isaac?
Sorry. What's triggering someone is that it looks unclear to him if you're actually granting that individuals generate demand. That's why I was referring to it as 0, right? And ants doesn't take the position that the individuals generating demand are generating 0, but it somehow adds up to more than 0. So he just wants you to concede that individuals are generating demand. Like ants isn't going to try to tell you something like, no, you can only look at it collectively. Right? It's like, what the fuck? It doesn't make any sense.
He said, like, well, when I heard him like debate and like make the point like slightly better, it was, what do you want? Go away. When I heard him like make the argument, something like you can look at it as like a revolutionary action or like a symbolic gesture, like individually, but individually you're not actually affecting the demand structure, which is the point I was making.
You're strawmanning him. That's not his position.
Can we get him here to clarify by any chance? Is he on?
But you can try, but it's also beside the point what Ant says, right? So I just wanted to point out, because I heard you strawmanning it. It's like, don't strawman Ant to the room, right? That guy's not an idiot. He's not going to come in and try to say some stupid shit like individuals don't generate demand, but collectives do.
So to be clear, I started this off with a nuanced thing, and he's the one who wanted to bring it to a binary, and I said, if you need to, you weren't here in the beginning part where I said, the binary of do you create demand or do you not create demand? And my point is like like in such an inconstant,
dude. No, it's P or not P. Either it's the case that you generate demand or it's not the case that you generate demand. The fuck do you mean a binary? Of course it's a binary. It's a proposition.
He gets no question. He gets no question, and he says, "Oh, it's a binary." Well, yeah, okay.
Well, no, it is. Unless
you're doing that,
you're trying to
miss the
out of
forest through the trees.
bivalent logic or something. Like obviously, the proposition you generate demand is either true or it's false.
Yeah, and I clarified.
You disagree with that? Because look, this is I can already tell what someone's getting annoyed by here, right? It's like you keep saying these things, like you'll say things like you can't look at it on an individual level, or it's a false, like it's some kind of binary reductive thing to say either you generate demand or not. It's like there's a resistance on your part to just granting that you generate demand. So someone's pressing you with the basic math of like, he's going from the thing that obviously everyone agrees to, which is that demand is generated, right? He's saying, look, do you deny that like 1,000 people buying something generates demand? Then he's just going, okay, so divide that demand by 1,000, and that's what the individual is contributing, right? He's just trying to show you that it's like a kind of like a mathematical.
But that's not individual anymore.
Saying that do you think that individuals generate demand?
Not really, no.
Okay. Do you think that if 500 people buy a product, that demand is generated?
Yeah.
Okay, but you see why someone's making fun of you, right? Like, are you really not capturing the stupidity of what you're saying right now?
I'm trying to remember the way to phrase it. Like,
I'll help you. The way to phrase it is to say what Ant says. They're generating a small amount of demand. Don't try to say it's 0, because then you end up going 0 plus 0 plus 0 equals 1,000, and someone starts making fun of you.
Okay.
But then just grant it. Just say, of course, individuals generate demand.
So, like, not in really any sort of way that matters, but
right. But that's different. If you're gonna say that they generate demand, but just a small amount of demand, that's enough to give someone his point, right? What he's making fun of you for is the,
This is like, okay, if like we were to dismantle like a plane, and you point to each individual part, you're like, can it fly?
Why
Can
are-
it fly? Can it
why-
fly? And then
why
like
are you-
when we put them all together,
That-
like the 1,000
that-
parts of a plane together,
wait,
and you're like, well, can that
wait,
fly? And I'm like,
wait,
yes.
wait. Sorry. Just do you grant that an individual generates demand?
So you're applying the properties of a whole to its parts, which are not
Listen,
proper to do.
I'm asking you a simple question. Does an individual generate demand?
Does each part of a plane fly?
Okay, now if you try to reply by dodging the question again instead of answering directly, you're just going to be banned from the server.
Okay, so I will opt out of this debate then.
Sorry, hello. Do individuals generate demand? Yes or no?
So if I say no, I get banned. So I guess the
Okay,
answer is yes.
No, it's fine. No, you already fucked up.
Like,
by-
come on, like I'm not allowed to
Bye.
disagree with you.
Bye-bye.
All right, man, whatever. All right, I'm gonna try my best to explain the thing I was making in the demand debate, because we never really got that far. I listened to it, and I can see how it would sound fucking stupid. So let's make like 2 boxes. So what I kind of wanted to talk about was, does your individual choice reduce demand? And there is something that sounds intuitive there of, oh, I choose not to buy a steak, therefore there is less demand for that steak. Now, what was really annoying is he was using scientific terms or technical terms, and then at one point in the conversation literally admitted to not using it in that proper context. That was using it as like a generally understood like demand, like, oh, when you talk about supply and demand, you think, oh, economics. And then when he eventually wanted to evolve that to some sort of layman thing like, oh, my demand has increased. Okay, my demand for a steak is increased. But let's say we have steaks for like $100 a steak. There is demand for steaks at 20, let's say, sorry, I meant to say 20 for that. Oh, there we go. There's demand for steaks at $20 a steak, right? Maybe there's 100 people who want $20 a steak. Can I draw a steak? I'm not talented enough to do that. There's demand for a steak at $20 a steak. Now, in a macroeconomic structure, you choosing not to buy that steak for $20 a steak won't result in that steak going unsold. It will end up in the bargain bin for $15 a steak. And then someone else will get that demand at $15 a steak. Now, if the company, it costs them $5 to produce one of those steaks, they prefer to make 20, but if they can't make 20, then they're going to make 15. The actual demand for the steak isn't going to change. The price point at which the demand for the steak is what's going to occur. The steak is not going to get wasted. The demand for that steak is going to be met at multiple price points. This is what happens when you have a monopsony? I think the term's monopsony. Let me look it up real quick. I think it's monopsony. Case in which only one buyer. Okay, no, it's not monopsony. I forgot the term for it, but basically, they have such the poultry industry or the meat industry in the United States is so, or I guess across the world, is so like unified that the individual actions of someone won't really matter because that demand will always shift over to make sure that they're maximizing profits of steaks that want to be consumed. Maybe if I can't, I'll only buy steaks at $15 a steak, not $20 a steak, and maybe I'll supplement that food with something else, but if I can get it for $15 a steak, I'll take it at $15 a steak. And that's what would happen there. That supply curve would just shift over. There wouldn't be a decrease in the amount of steaks. It's just the amount at a given price point. And I guess like my other problem, which is why I was like sort of harping on this so bad, was like he's trying to get like a meaningless victory. Even if I concede that in the most meaningful way, like let's just say like your thing amounts to like a zero. Fuck, where's the difference is like 0.00000000001% decrease in the reduction of meat. He's like, haha, I win. This is irrelevant. And while I guess I could, like more often than not, when I'll have that conversation, I won't get stuck up on the technicality of like how this demand curve is met and how like your lack of consumption of meat won't actually like change demand in a system like that. What's it called? Like usually if I'm trying to like move like a fucking vegan person over, like I'll just concede like this and just be like, sure, it matters, but in an inconsequential way. Now, I feel like there is merit to this argument about, like, you know, the demand curve not being met and, like, it's largely macroeconomic structures. What they're trying to dumb it down to is, like, let's say it's me and, like, 3 people in a village. One guy just makes steaks for a living, so he just, like, he pulls them out of the steak box, and that's where steaks come from in this imaginary village world. And there's, like, 3 people in this village. Now, me, all 3 of us eat steaks, and, like, all of a sudden, if I stop doing that, I think you have a 50% reduction in the demand for steaks. Now, when you look at these weird hypotheticals, like, there's a logic to what he's saying, but when you extrapolate out to real world conditions, it just doesn't really work like that for, like, these reasons of large organizational structures that exist as multinational corporations and their capacity to absorb one individual's impact. That's why, like, does it actually affect demand? No, but in the case of, if you want to argue like this, like, for the sake of moving a conversation forward, like, I could grant this and, like, it really wouldn't change much, but it's just a stupid point they're going to make. Ha ha ha. Like imagine if your food went from, like, you know, this number to, like, that with another 0 into it. Like, do you really care? For most things, no. It's like, it's the difference between nothing and next to nothing. Most times people say, oh, that's nothing. They don't mean it's literally nothing. They mean that it's functionally equivalent to nothing. Now, the reason I have issues with, like, a lot of the vegans is because they get caught up in just being, like, stupid fucking logic bros, which I know sounds condescending, but I really don't care. It's because they get caught up in this, like, you're telling me, like, 1 + 1 + 1 = 0, and I'm like, no, it's just, like, systems in reality don't work that way, and it leads to them having, like, a little knowledge, and then because of that having a wrong outcome. Like, one metaphor I use, those people who know, like, oh, mercury is poisonous, oh, vaccines have mercury, ergo vaccines are bad for you. Well, no, this is complicated. And vaccines are not dangerous for you. But it's, like, weird things like that where they're, like, missing, like, the forest, the trees, and getting caught up on these, like, really silly points that, like, a lot of these people who, like, superficially understand logic and use language like that, they can't ever understand something that's counterintuitive. And I will admit that the whole, like, you not eating steak doesn't actually affect demand is counterintuitive, but he dumbed it down trying to act like he's using economic language. And then at one point in that argument seated, he wasn't using economic language. He was using, like, layman language. Like, have I personally decreased my demand? Yes, I am eating less steak. Does that decrease in demand translate into some, like, you know, butterfly effect across the meat industry where it collapses? No, it doesn't. So that's more or less the clarification I want to make here, because I realized I listened to the debate. I'm like, I can see how what he's saying sort of makes sense, because once again, every time I try to say, let me elaborate, let me explain this, and let me, like, rant for, like, a minute, and, like, you'll understand my position, which I would have used probably an example similar to this to demonstrate it, he just would, like, keep going back to some weird example. And then once again going from, like, well, when 1,000 people decide this, well, once again, we are past the point of individual action when it's thousands of people. It's individuals. And, like, does it really matter if, like, you know, what's better, if one person goes full vegan or 10 people reduce their meat consumption by, like, 95%? Obviously, 95% from 10 people is a better utilitarian good in that sense than one person going full vegan. Or if 1,000 people massively reduce their meat consumption, that's way better than, you know, any number of vegans, probably up to, I don't know, it's probably better than, like, 900 actual vegans, just in terms of, like, how much harm, like, what utilitarian harm would be caused there. But yeah, that's really it. Like, that's why I was sort of getting, like, annoyed in, like, the middle portion of it when I started recording, because, like, I pointed out, like, you're just trying to, like, you're pigeonholing this conversation here because, like, you know, to the audience we're speaking to, because, like, in that server, they have, like, a debate, like, Crucible channel where they, like, announce it to everyone, and all of a sudden it gets swarmed by people. I was like, I didn't even want to do this when they first started. I was like, whatever, I'm here, fuck it. So there's, like, 20, 30 people who are hearing his argument and thinking it makes sense. And in this really, really, like, basic, bitch, meaningless way, I can get how it intuitively makes sense, but in the real world, in this example, it doesn't really do anything. And also pragmatically, like, even if I grant you, like, inconsequentially small number as the difference you're making, it also means nothing. And usually, like when I talk about this point, I'll concede this, and I won't really try and argue this. But he was just being a pain in the ass and wanted to like LARP about how like I need to concede this, and then we can move forward. And like could I have? I suppose, but I don't really know if that's even necessarily true in these like macro arguments. And like he also admitted he knew nothing about economics, and also once again I need to clarify this. Backed away from saying that I'm using these terms economically. He was using them to sound like he was talking about economics, but he wasn't. He was talking about like logic, like very basic scenarios. But it's like, once again, you lose the ability to account for counterintuitive scenarios when you bring stuff to that level, because like you can't account for stuff that is counterintuitive, and it's really fucking annoying. And then they got triggered by the whole airplane analogy, which I thought was kind of funny. Well, I guess I'll put like the caveat in there. I understand. I still think the ask yourself guys is kind of a bit of a pain in the ass. But I understand what there was us talking past each other there. The reason why he banned me was because he thought I was dodging a question, but in reality I'd answered that question 10 times before, and I thought the question was stupid. And like me saying like, can you apply the it's like you asking me if like each part of an airplane can fly, and then once all the airplanes together and the airplane can fly, like this. And the answer is like, obviously each individual part can't fly. So if he thought about the metaphor I was making for a second, I'm acknowledging the thing he's asking me, that no, your demand doesn't matter. It doesn't impact the demand in a given system from an individual standpoint. It's the collective, when you combine all of these parts together, where that is affected. The same way that a plane can't fly until all of its parts are together that allow it to fly. It's the same exact way. So if he thought about my metaphor, I did directly answer his question, because the answer to that is obviously a plane seat can't fly. So no, I do not think the individual part has the property of the collective. That's it. I'm actually going to take that video down and edit this into the end of it. God, what a pain in the butt.